Welcome to Supernatural Circumstances, the podcast where we take you down the rabbit hole into the fantastic world of the strange, the paranormal, and the unknown. I'm Morgan Knudsen. Come along with me on this week's adventure. Guys, pack your bags. We are going on summer vacation. It is Summerween, after all. I don't know if you guys have heard that term before. It's sort of new, this idea of celebrating Halloween in the middle of summer, which I think is pretty cool. We don't have enough holidays in the summer. Well, today we're going on a amazing road trip thanks to the incredible author Sylvia Shults, who has written a fantastic book for everybody who wants to pack their bags and go on a spooky road trip, which is right up my alley. And her book is really cool. It's called Gone on Vacation: Haunted Zoos, Museums, and Amusement Parks. Now, I don't know about you guys, but usually when we think about haunted stops, we think of like roadside attractions or historical places or things like that. But that's not what she's done here. I mean, she's got a few in there, but these locations are a little bit more unique. And I am really excited to get going on this. I know many people are looking for things to do with their summer and where they want to go on vacation. I'm hoping that this is going to help, and well, maybe we can all take an adventure. So let's get this party started. Let's talk to Sylvia. She is a cool lady. She has been doing paranormal investigations and stuff like that for a long time. She's written a ton of books, including horror fiction and paranormal fiction, and I mean, she's really done it all. So for her to come out with these Gone on Vacation books, I mean, what a cool addition to anybody's library. So let's get talking to her and let's get on the road. Well, Sylvia, welcome to Supernatural Circumstances. It is so good to have you here. I'm excited to talk about this. I mean, we're going on a road trip with your book, so welcome to the show.
Morgan, thank you so much for inviting me on. I am really looking forward to our conversation.
Well, this is going to be great, and your book is so interesting. It's so much fun. There's a lot of travel guides and stuff like that are out there. And what I really liked about yours was that yours is specific to some places that normally people don't think about when they're going on a road trip or when they're thinking about haunted places, like things like zoos, stuff like this, where normally you're not thinking about this. So how did you decide that this is what you were going to write about?
Oh man, gosh. Well, I was talking with some ghost hunting friends of mine, and one of them happened to mention that she worked at Brookfield Zoo for a while, haunted zoos. And I thought we might not be able to find exactly enough material for an entire book just on haunted zoos. So let's expand this a little better, little bit. Let's do vacation. Let's do haunted zoos, museums, and amusement parks.
Totally different.
Yeah. I'm currently actually putting the final touches on the second book in the series, which is going to have more haunted museums and also haunted historic villages. More haunted
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. I was talking with a podcaster right after Gone on Vacation came out, and she was English, lovely, lovely lady, and she said something about a haunted historic village in England, and I thought, my boy, I missed a trick there. Why didn't I think haunted historic villages? And I thought, well, God, why don't I just do a second book?
Well, that's exciting. So let's get into this book a little bit because it's really fun. How did you research this and figure out which places you were going to add? Because I feel like things like zoos and amusement parks, that's not necessarily something that they want to advertise.
Yeah, I did run into that a little bit, and I hope nobody gets mad at me for including their park or zoo or whatever. Um, there are zoos and historic villages and amusement parks that actually do ghost tours. They have, yes, there are paranormal groups that work with these places and actually do their part paranormal investigation, and ghost tours are part of their offerings. Adelaide Zoo in Australia is also another one of those. There's a wonderful ghost hunting group called Adelaide's Haunted Horizons that work very closely with this historic village, the zoo, to bring that historical side to life for people and throw a bit of the spooky in too.
That's so exciting. Okay, so well, let's start there. Let's start with Adelaide Zoo. What did you find out? If people are going there and they're deciding that they maybe are looking for a little bit more than the animals, what are they going to find, Sylvia?
Oh man, Adelaide Zoo is a fun one. It was the directors of the zoo for a very long time were members of the Minchin family, and they did the best they could, bless them, but they kept having these horrible accidents at the zoo, and that's almost kind of what Adelaide Zoo is known for. 19
Really?
Oh, yeah. 1985, there was a group of only 2 kids, 2 18-year-old boys that broke into the zoo and basically slaughtered 64 animals, mostly in the children's zoo. The flightless birds, chickens, goats, sheep. They killed an alligator too. I mean, who kills an alligator? So the guys were caught and sentenced. One of them got 5 years in jail. One of them got 4 years and some months in jail. And just really horrible things. And it's no fault of the zoo that these horrible, horrible things went on at the zoo. The ghost stories for Adelaide Zoo mostly focus on the house that the zoo directors lived in for quite some time. The Minchin family took directorship of the zoo in like 1893 and continued with that until like 1964 or something like that. So they lived in this house on the zoo grounds for quite some time. And that house is still standing. It's gorgeous. It's used as the admin building. People will come into work and they'll look up at the top of the stairs and they'll see this beautiful woman standing there in a long white dress with her hair up in a bun. And they're like, that's not a staff member. Well, they've caught children's voices on the staircase. Adelaide's Haunted Horizons said something about, "Are there any children here?" And they caught the EVP of yes. And children's voices have been heard on the staircase. So it's a wonderful, wonderful place, and I would love to go to Australia just to experience the Adelaide Zoo.
Yeah, absolutely. So in all of these cases of like haunted zoos and things like that, and I'll have you tell another story about one that impacts you here in a minute. But do you find are you finding the hauntings are a little bit more centered around people, or do you find that there are places that are reporting ghosts of animals or seeing animals that aren't there, anything like that?
Both zookeeper and regular folks and animal ghosts in these zoo stories. That is what makes them so fascinating. The Cincinnati Zoo has a phantom lioness. She only appears to you when you're alone, which is super fun. You'll be walking along this tree-lined path, just minding your own business, and you'll get this sense that you're being watched. And it's not like, hair standing back on the back of your neck, like, oh God, I think somebody's staring at me. No, no. This is a feeling like you are prey. And it's
Oh,
a very uncomfortable feeling, and then you'll become aware that there's this big cat kind of walking in the brush next to you. And if you're really lucky or unlucky, as the case may be, you'll hear this lioness give a couple of coughs.
wow. I can't even imagine. I've been in my fair share of haunted locations with some pretty weird things, and that is never something that I would have ever expected to encounter. We have stories here in Alberta, interestingly enough, of we have a lot of badlands here in Alberta where there's been historical uh, discoveries of dinosaur fossils and many rivers and things like that that have since dried up that were hotbeds for dinosaurs. And we've had archaeologists who have reported hearing the sound of footsteps, giant footsteps, right out in the Badlands, hearing these strange noises. And the only thing that they can think of is that there's what if is this the residual energy of a dinosaur? Is this what this is? But this is the first time I have ever heard of of a lion. Like it's that's so interesting. Have you uncovered any more stories that are similar?
Not really. There are
That's significant. Like that's a holy
that's
crap moment.
actually there's oh, and I wish I could remember. It's the zoo on the Isle of Wight in England that has a few more ghostly animals. They're not lions, not big prey or predator animals like that, but their ghosts tend to be more like the zebras and the sheep and stuff like that. Um, the zoo on the Isle of Wight is another very fascinating place, and I wish I could have made time to go to that when I was over in England for 3 weeks ghost hunting a couple of years ago. But yeah, that it mostly houses animals that have been it's an animal sanctuary more than anything else. I mean, yes, it's a zoo, but it's more of an animal sanctuary.
That's really interesting. It kind of brings up for me, just from the parapsychology standpoint, it brings up something that's really interesting because normally when you get you know, various hauntings, oftentimes it's very much tied to uh, the living's emotions, whether it be the living people and how they're interacting with the space and all of this stuff. And it's an interesting consideration to think that animals perhaps have that same level of ability, whether it be, you know, projecting thought or um the the idea that they can, that their emotion is maybe intertwined in creating this. And that didn't actually hit me until you said that this was a rescue place. And because I mean, a lot of the times when I'm investigating various cases or whatever, and you've probably found this as well, is that when people are in turmoil or they're in upheaval, stuff's happening around them, whether it be psychokinetically or, whatever's happening around them. And it was just a bit of an aha moment when you said, this was a rescue. So you've probably got, animals that are under stress. They've got, and they're coming out of that stress. They're starting to heal. They're doing all of these things. And you've got this psychic activity that's going on around them. Do you think that might be tied in cases like that?
I really, really do. There's another place that I'm writing about in Gone on Vacation Endless Summer. We didn't get to do much actual investigation. We just walked around and took the tour, but man, I would have loved to have done because this is a place, an animal sanctuary again in Wisconsin called Valley of the Kings. And I've been an Egypt wonk since I was in grade school. So you tell me about a place called Valley of the Kings, I am there. I am off like a shot. There are a couple of ghosts at Valley of the Kings that happen to be a keeper and a tiger, but she insisted on getting into the tiger's enclosure, not bothering it because she shouldn't do that. I mean, she cared very deeply for this tiger, but the tiger just wanted to be left alone. And there was one point in time where the tiger was in this great big, like, semi truck trailer that's still on the ground. And this keeper went in to interact with the tiger, and the tiger mauled her and killed her. And then the tiger was shot and returned. So, yeah, there's a lot of emotion going on there with both the human and the animal.
Yeah, that's so scary when stuff like that happens. And when I think of just the dynamics that could go on at, a place like a zoo or anything like that, you can kind of see how some of this stuff would be happening. Like it's crazy. So continuing on this theme of crazy road trips and whatnot, out of all of the museums and whatnot that you researched, what museum really stood out for you? Like, if you could recommend a museum for somebody to go to because they're into this kind of stuff, which museum would you pick?
Oh, that is so hard. Well, my heart really lies with the Chicago Museum because I grew up in the suburbs. So, of course, I'm going to recommend places like the Brookfield Zoo, the Lincoln Park Zoo, which is built over a cemetery, just like the Denver Botanical Gardens is built over a cemetery. And it has hauntings for the exact same reason. Chicago also has a couple of really fabulous museums. Um, the Field Museum, which is loaded with activity. Oddly enough, none in the Egyptian room. I talked to a psychic friend of mine, Liz, and she said the Egyptian room in the Field Museum is as dead gets, which I found interesting. But they also have the Museum of Science and Industry. I love both those museums dearly. I could not pick a favorite between the two, but the Museum of Science and Industry has the U-505 submarine, and that is wonderfully, splendidly haunted by the one of the commanders, one of the U-boat commanders, a fellow named Peter Check. He was not around when the U-505 was captured by the United States, but his spirit is definitely on the U-boat, and we've told enough tragic stories for this show, so I won't go into that. But I got to talk when Gone on Vacation came out last August. They also had a an exhibit at the MSI about Pompeii. So of course I had to go see that. And I brought my copy of Gone on Vacation with me. And I got to talk with um, one of the security guards for the U-505. And he is also a history buff and a World War II buff. So this guy is perfect to have as a security guard on the U-505 submarine. He told me that a woman came up to him while he was on duty during the day. And she said, "All right, so I know this is a science museum. Do you guys have hologram technology?" And he's like, "I don't know. What did you see?" And she said she saw a man standing up on the conning tower of the submarine, and tall guy, good looking guy in a dark blue, what looked like a naval uniform, and he had his insignia on his uniforms. And this guy, being so knowledgeable about World War II, knew immediately that she had seen the ghost of Captain Dan. What is his last name? It's escaping me now. But she saw the ghost of the captain that captured the U-505. Dan Gallery, that's his name. He was in charge of the task force, the hunter killer task force that was tasked with going out and sinking these submarines. And he thought, what a great idea it would be if we could capture a sub and learn all its secrets. When they did this, they actually captured a couple of Enigma machines. The capture of the U-505 was a turning point in World War II because they finally had their hands on these spycraft machines that were causing the Allies so much trouble, and they finally got a leg up.
That's the cool thing about these places is that not only are you getting this history lesson, but there's so much more underneath of them. Like especially when you realize that a piece of the history, like the captain, is tied to the ship. Still, that there's a chance that you can encounter some of these people, maybe just in visitation, that are coming back, and people are seeing them, or there's maybe it's residual energy. Maybe people are seeing this as a glimpse in the folds of history. Do you ever get the feeling that maybe some of the museums might be having some sort of a time slip or something crazy like that?
I think so, especially with a lot of the living history museums, with the outdoor villages. I think those are extremely prone to time slip. I talked to somebody as an author, I do a lot of talks at libraries. I went to the Lily M. Evans Library, and I talked to a fellow librarian named Anita, and she told me a story about Lincoln's New Salem here in Illinois. And she said she had gone to the park in grade school on a field trip. And I mean, this, of course, we were about the same age, so this was decades ago. But she and her classmates were walking around, and she and her classmates both, three of them, three girls were together, and they looked through the window, this woman bending over the hearth cooking. And she was wearing this pretty gingham dress with an apron over it to protect her skirts, and she turned and looked at Anita, and Anita said she had the most brilliant, beautiful blue eyes. And she smiled at Anita, Anita smiled back, and they turned away from the window, and Anita turned to her friends and said, "Isn't it great that they have people dressed in these old-timey costumes cooking in the cabins? This is so cool." And her friends are both like, "What are you talking about?" She was the only person who saw.
Wow. That's incredible. We've got a lot of those types of museums and stuff in Canada, like that you can sort of go to these places. And one of the first cases that I actually ever investigated, which was like over 20 years ago, was at one of these like living museums. And my business partner at the time and I we got a call to come down and take a look at this old house, which was built. It was, oh gosh, I wanna say early 1900s, if not late 1800s, and it's since become very notorious for stuff going on in the home. But these places seem to have just a really really different vibe about them. Like they seem to draw that type of activity, I guess. And what I wonder is that if the fact that they are a museum, the fact that people are going through, there's lots of energy and emotion being kicked up by just guests that are coming through all the time. I'm wondering if like that has something directly to do with just how active a lot of these museums are. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, I agree 100% on that. The Kern County Museum out in Bakersfield, California, is another one of those living history museums. They have it was big in the gold rush, so they have an assay office, they have a general store, they have I believe they have a theater, they have a schoolhouse, they have a couple of houses, all these buildings that were rescued and taken to this outdoor museum. And there have been paranormal groups that have investigated it. That museum in particular is open for wedding receptions and business retreats and things of that nature, and the stores are open. And their theory is that the spirits that are still hanging around, first of all, they love to gate crash. They'll show up at a birthday party or a business retreat, and also entities that in their lives ran a store or ran a cooper's shop or a hat maker's shop. They're still interested in what's going on. They're drawn back to it.
That's really interesting because that's been my experience also, is that a lot of these places tend to bring back the individuals that were really enjoying them when they were alive. And we have a number of bars. There's a strip in Edmonton called White Ave, and White Avenue is uh, it's just really popular. It's really busy. There's lots of bars, shopping, restaurants, all that kind of a thing. But many of them are old, like they're from the inception of Edmonton, basically. And uh, we found that going along through these places, that many of the bar owners actually had similar stories of one spirit in particular who was actually visiting each one. He was going from bar to bar, and it would made everybody just crack up when everybody realized it was actually the same entity. So it's interesting that they just seem to be coming. They just want to hang out. Like, yeah, I think people often are thinking that there's some, dark, tragic story behind it. But usually it's not a dark, tragic story. Usually it's something that it's just these personalities that want to come back, hang out. They were having fun. And that's kind of the best place to be, I think. But I want to talk to you about talking about fun. I want to talk to you about this idea of these haunted amusement parks. Because again, it's not something people are thinking of when you're going to, seek out a thrill ride or something like that. So talk to me a little bit about like how does an amusement park get haunted?
Well, unfortunately, usually it becomes haunted because somebody died on a roller coaster, now the roller coaster is haunted. But sometimes, again, people hanging out because they enjoy the energy. I mentioned my dear friend Liz Nygaard, and she introduced me to a spirit at Six Flags Great America in Gurnee, and they call her grandma. And it's this woman who was in the theater and suffered a heart attack. Liz showed me the seat that she had the heart attack in. So yes, she is at Six Flags because she died there. But she's very invested in the theater. She will come to Liz and say, I want you to get a message to this young actor or actress, encourage them in their career. She sat with Liz for literally an hour and a half at the laundromat one day, just chatting, shooting the breeze. She wrote a note out and gave it to Liz for somebody. Liz still has that note in her purse. Some of these spirits hang around because they just had so much fun at the amusement park that they just don't want to leave. And with grandma, she is doing good. She is guiding young performers, giving them advice, and she's still doing what she loves. She's just not constrained by time and space anymore.
I just love that because that's been so much my experience throughout my career has been exactly what you're talking about. Just this idea that they are so inviting, they so want that connection, and it's really been I get the media and people's twists on stuff that has I think put these so many of these entities in this really dark light that it's got to be something that's so awful or nasty, and they're just stuck there, like just craziness. And and I've just found that it's just so completely the opposite. And I think what you're saying is really really important for people to get, because not only are there these amazing places with these amazing spirits out there, but that they want the connection. It's not like people have to go there and like hunt around in the dark for them. Many of these spirits, they want the interaction, they want to connect.
Oh, yeah.
So when like people come in and come into these places and say they're looking for that interaction, what would you recommend that they do? I mean, apart from, saying hello.
Oh, just keep your wits about you and keep an open mind and notice what's going on around you. I have an absolutely delightful story, but this happened to me and my friends at Billy Creek Village in Indiana. It's another living history museum. They've got several different buildings that they put together in a village sort of situation. And a little ways apart from the village, maybe a quarter mile away, is a rescued building that they put a little outside the village. So I had been there before, so I was like playing native guide and everything. I'm like, you guys got to check this out. This is so cool. So the three of us, Roger, James, and myself, went to the house, and Roger stayed outside to have a cigarette outside. So we walked around the first floor of the house, and then there's a tiny hallway, and you go up a flight of stairs. There's several steps, a landing, and several more steps that open out into the second floor. The second floor is nice and airy and open. So we walked around upstairs, and there was a little there's a dresser at the top of the stairs, and there was a little silver bell on it, and James picked it up and tinkled it. And from below, we heard Roger say, "You rang," kind of doing his Lurch impression. So Roger was downstairs in the bottom part of the house filming, and James and I were upstairs. So we're wandering around upstairs, kind of talking in low voices, not really paying much attention. And Roger's filming, and he's in the bedroom downstairs, and he hears this big bang and a click sort of noise. And he's like, "What in the world are those guys doing up there?" So, unbeknownst to us, he was filming, and we were just kind of roaming around upstairs, and we decided to come back down. So we came down the first set of stairs, got to the landing, and we're at the second part of the stairs, and I noticed that the door at the bottom of the stairs, halfway up the first set of stairs, is closed. Kind of strange and random. So I put my fingers, I tented my fingers on the door, and I kind of pushed at it, and it wouldn't open. Like, man, he really shut us in here. Wow. So I placed the flat of my hand on the door and shoved, and then the door came open. And we opened the door, and Roger comes up with the camera in hand, and we're like, "Dude, why'd you shut the door on us?" And he's like, "There's a door?" He didn't even know the door was there. we realized that when we closed the door, we would shove the door, maybe there was a breeze, there was no breeze. We'd shove the door closed, and it would, like, hit the door jamb and bounce back. We actually had to close the door, and we realized that the door closing sound that we were making right then was the sound that Roger had heard from the other side of the building.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I know, there's a museum here in Edmonton that I've had the pleasure of being at a number of times, and I used to host, some workshops and stuff in there, and, speaking of door stories, we had I had a group on the upper level. The building used to be, Edmonton's first legislature building originally, and then it got turned into a school and museum and all sorts of things. And we were up on the top floor, which used to be the old Alberta legislature, and we were. I was doing a lecture. I was talking about something, and somebody started to get riled up. They started to just get like upset. They were freaking out, and I mean, just not calm. I mean, everything you shouldn't be doing when you're in a place like this. And interestingly enough, the entity that was there, who was I ended up having a just relatively good relationship with this thing, but it got really upset because this guy was really upset. And when I said, okay, that's enough. Let's let this guy, take this guy outside, let him cool down. And we went to go open the door, and the doors were locked shut. Every single door in the museum was locked, and the one caretaker, he came upstairs and he had this whole big batch of skeleton keys for this place, and not even the skeleton keys would open this door. And so we were stuck in there until I was able to kind of calm this entity down, and as soon as that happened, doors open, no problem. Everybody walked out, but it was a one incident of like a plethora of incidents in this museum, and it was really 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 interesting. It was just, but yeah, even the caretaker was stumped. He was like, "I don't understand. This key is supposed to open everything." It was really funny, and just, yeah, one of those things that just sticks in my head to this day, about some of these locations. So it's really really, I don't know. It's so fascinating to me. Do you ever have you ever encountered any of these stories as you're going along that has shifted your perception about these places? Has there been one that stood out to you that you're like, "Man, I just didn't expect this."
Yes. I'm glad you asked that. Blackpool, England is Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Started up in 1904 and has been going strong ever since. It's still a going concern, millions of visitors a year. And it is haunted by several, including one that they call Clogs, or Cloggy is his nickname. One of them, Darren Ritson, shared with me that he and another investigator, Drew Bartley, were invited to do an investigation at Blackpool Pleasure Beach in this ghost train ride. It's called the Ghost Train. It's the first incident of it's the ghost train ride that gave all the others their name. In England, New Zealand, Australia, and in China, a dark ride with a spooky theme is called a ghost train.
Okay.
And this one at Blackpool Pleasure Beach is the first one, and it is still called Ghost Train. So Drew and Darren were in there. So they've got this camera crew and everything. They've got these reporters that really don't know what's going on. I mean, there were jump scares and everything, and the investigators are at least prepared for jump scares. But these poor cameramen were just not prepared for any of that, and they're in the ghost train ride. And Darren says, "All right, Cloggy, can you show yourself? Can you let us know that you're here?" And they hear these footsteps come barreling up the tracks to them, and this cameraman is like, "Nope, I am out of here." And later he told Drew, he's like, "I don't see how you guys can do this week after week after week." He said, "I have been a cameraman for X amount of years. I've been in war zones. I've been shot at. I've had things blowing up around me, and I am just scared crapless with what's going on here. I can't do it." So that documentary actually never aired because the cameraman just bailed in the middle of it.
Wow. It's funny that you say that because that's not the first time I've heard of that happening. I remember I was actually speaking with somebody today about the Amityville house, and that was one of the things that one of the investigators who had been there, who I spoke with a number of years ago, that was the one thing that she had said was that their cameraman at the time that was there was a army vet, and he had been through upteenth amounts of wars, and I mean, he'd seen horrific things and was pretty hardy dude, and he quit. He actually up and quit because he was like, I this is a line. I can't cross it. And I think this stuff because it really starts to shift your perception of reality. Like you have to change your perception of the world. It's a lot different than even coping. I mean, not that I've ever done it, but even coping with something like the realities of war, because I think it both change your perception, but maybe in a different way. So but that's interesting. That's you say not the first time I've heard that of somebody who's been in the military and things like that have said, okay, this is my line.
Well, here's the interesting thing about this. So, I did some more research on the hauntings there, and I discovered an article by a woman named Juliet Gregson, whose grandfather used to work on the ghost train as a maintenance guy. He used to work at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which, having your grandpa work at an amusement park is just a kid's dream job, right? So he actually knew this guy that became the ghost of Cloggy. And he said this guy was devoted to his job. He was all about the customer service. He knew that customers expected to be scared. It's a scare ride, it's a ghost train ride. So he would make absolutely sure that the customers had the best scary, spooky experience they possibly could. And that's exactly what he's doing now. He runs up on people and he scares the face out of them, and he thinks he's doing a great job. He's like,
That's
"Yeah."
fantastic. That is hands down that's my favorite story that you've told. Like, that it to me, it just exemplifies everything that we've just talked about here, which is they love this. They love this stuff. And that I think that's absolutely fantastic. Like, this it's just it's so heartwarming to know that, not only are they delivering for people because people are fascinated and want to visit haunted places, but that they are having just as much fun doing this. That's the cool thing to me about this. I think it's phenomenal. Sylvia, this has been so interesting. I'm so glad that we could do this today. Please tell people where they can get the book that's available, Gone on Vacation. Please tell them, and then of course you've got the sequel coming out.
Yes, yes, I do. So all of these books are available at Amazon, of course, but you know what? Jeff Bezos doesn't need any more of our money. So I like to send people to a website called bookshop.org. The neat thing about this site is that part of your purchase price goes into a fund, and every month that fund gets divvied up between independent bookstores. So it is a great way to celebrate and support indie bookstores without, even if you don't have one in your neighborhood that you can visit the brick and mortar store, this is a great way to support indie bookstores. So bookshop.org to find books by Sylvia Shults, Gone on Vacation Endless Summer, which should be out by beginning of September.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun, and I can't wait for everybody to dig into this. There's so many more stories in here, guys. Like such interesting.
I didn't even get to name drop Alison Jornlin.
We have to name her. Yes, Allison. I mean, I've had her on the show before, and she is so wonderful, and we've been friends for a really long time. She's fantastic. So a huge shout out to Allison, because without Allison, this interview wouldn't have happened. So I am very, very, very grateful to her for sure. Thank you so much. We are going to this yeah, this will be out in I guess probably August. So by the time everybody's listening to this, it is August. Welcome to August, everyone. Hopefully you get in your cars. get your plane tickets, pack your bags, and go on a amazing journey and road trip with one of Sylvia's amazing books. So thank you so much, and we'll have you back. Okay, that was a great conversation, and it got a lot darker in the beginning than what I thought it was going to be. But I guess that is the road of dark tourism. And I'll talk a little bit about dark tourism here because it's really become a thing, especially in the last, I would say, like 5 or 6 years, to the point where there is a university in Ontario that actually called me to be a part of designing their dark tourism program because, as many of you guys know, I do sort of parapsychology haunted walks, which I call immersive classrooms here in Edmonton, Alberta. And they're called Historically Haunted, if anybody is out there that wants to come and join or book one privately. But it's such a teaching tool for me. So it's and I meet wonderful people, which is really, really cool. So, but dark tourism has become a thing where people not only want to see haunted places and spooky things, but also visiting places that they may otherwise not ever either get to see or many people want to see. Things like visiting countries that are maybe closed normally to the average person, and seeing places that are the darker side of history, such as locations to do with the Holocaust and things like that. So this idea of dark tourism has exploded in recent years, and I think people do it for different reasons. But this is such a cool idea with what Sylvia is doing with her book, because these are locations that you don't have to go to a deep, dark place to visit and enjoy the history and the stories of all of these unique tales. And the paranormal events, be they something that people are creating or making up for the sake of getting money and selling tickets, or if they are a real genuine thing, I think it's kind of up to people like you guys to go and discern for yourself. I mean, and that's always a question that I have with some of these locations is, are they making money for the sake of making money, or is this something that they're genuinely celebrating? When I was in California, I got to go to so many locations that were genuinely celebrating the things that were going on there. One of those places being the Queen Mary, which is an amazing ship. If you guys ever get a chance to go, holy crap, please go. Phenomenal piece of history. People that go and spend money there help with the upkeep of the ship and preserving some of these places. And you get to experience all of the crazy mystery that's there. So it's really interesting. So I love what Sylvia's doing. There are people out there like her that I think are going to keep these legends and this history alive, or maybe if it didn't have that history, perhaps we wouldn't be stopping there, right? Would they have ended up in a book or in any sort of significant publication if she or people like Chad Lewis, for example, didn't write them down and put them in there? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily stop at some of these places had I not heard these stories. So it's really cool. So I hope that you guys are able to get in your car this summer and go explore some of these things. You can get Gone on Vacation on Amazon. Please look Sylvia up. She's a lot of fun, and her book series is really, really cool, and I think anybody who's interested in urban exploration and really wanting to get involved in the local legends and lore of communities can really benefit from this. Because I know, like, here in Alberta, there's so many. Like, you could get in the car and drive and find mysteries pretty much anywhere you're going. And that's the magic of a lot of this stuff. So I hope that you guys can go out, go do this. It is Summerween, people. Get your trick-or-treat bags. Okay, well, maybe not. Maybe people aren't going to, if you knock on people's doors, I don't know if they're going to give you candy. But we can at least start celebrating Halloween a little bit early by doing a really, really cool road trip. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this eerie expedition, dear listeners. And remember, there is no line between the natural and the supernatural. all is consciousness. Until next time, stay curious, friends. Supernatural Circumstances is a co-production of Entity Seeker, Paranormal Research and Teachings, and the 20th Plane. This podcast is a part of the Curious Cast podcast network. You can find out more about me, Morgan Knudsen, and book me for live appearances at entityseeker.ca. You can also email the show at supernaturalcircumstances.com.